What if the diagnosis you just received is not the end of your story, but the beginning of a completely different chapter? A groundbreaking 2025 study from the University of Toronto followed over 8,000 adults aged 60 and older who were struggling with poor health. Within just 3 years, nearly 1 in 4 of them had regained what researchers call optimal well-being. Not just surviving, thriving. Today, I am going to show you exactly what made the difference and what the research says you can actually do about it. And here is what surprised the researchers most. The people who recovered were not necessarily younger or healthier at the start. They simply did specific things differently, things that most doctors never mention during a diagnosis conversation. Raymond from Tampa is 68 years old. He sat in his cardiologist's office, hearing words no one wants to hear. After his diagnosis, he assumed his active years were behind him. 14 months later, after making changes his doctor initially doubted would matter, his follow-up tests showed improvements that put him in a better category than many people who had never been diagnosed at all. Number 1. A diagnosis is not a verdict. Most people treat a serious diagnosis like a life sentence. They hear the words from their doctor and immediately begin mentally preparing for decline. But research shows it does not have to be this way. The human body retains remarkable capacity for recovery and adaptation well into the later decades of life. What happens after a diagnosis often matters more than the diagnosis itself. The choices you make in the weeks and months following that conversation can fundamentally alter your trajectory in ways that surprise even experienced physicians. A September 2025 study published in PLOS One by researchers Mabel Ho and Esme Fuller-Thomson from the University of Toronto tracked 8,332 Canadian adults aged 60 and older who initially reported poor well-being across physical, emotional, social, and self-rated health measures. Within approximately 3 years, 23.4% had achieved what researchers defined as optimal well-being. This was not just slight improvement. This was flourishing across multiple dimensions of health. The study specifically noted that having chronic conditions did not automatically prevent recovery. What mattered more was functional ability, mental wellness, social support, and personal satisfaction with the aging process. The presence of disease was less predictive than how people responded to it. The researchers found something particularly striking about mindset. People who already showed signs of psychological and emotional wellness at baseline were nearly 5 times more likely to recover full well-being than those who did not. This suggests that how you think about your situation plays a larger role than many assume. It does not mean you should pretend everything is fine or suppress difficult emotions. It means that cultivating realistic hope and maintaining emotional balance genuinely affects physical outcomes. Your mental response to a diagnosis is not separate from your physical response. They are deeply interconnected. When someone accepts a diagnosis as a final verdict, it often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They stop making efforts that could change their trajectory because they believe those efforts are pointless. They withdraw from activities they enjoyed. They eat less carefully because they figure it no longer matters. They skip exercise because they assume their body can no longer handle it. Each of these choices accelerates decline that was never inevitable in the first place. After any diagnosis, ask your doctor one specific question. What lifestyle changes have been shown to improve outcomes for people in my situation? Write down the answer and treat it as seriously as any prescription. Your response to a diagnosis in the first weeks often determines your trajectory for years. Do not wait to ask. Number 2. Physical movement produces surprising results. Why do frail elderly patients who exercise after a heart event often show greater percentage improvements than younger, healthier patients? This counterintuitive finding has been documented repeatedly in cardiac rehabilitation research. The answer lies in the concept of baseline. When you start from a lower point, improvements are more dramatic and more meaningful. A person who could barely walk across a room and can now walk around the block has experienced a transformation. Someone who was already fit and become slightly fitter has improved, but the impact on daily life is less profound. Research published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology found that cardiac rehabilitation, which combines supervised exercise, lifestyle guidance, and support, produces remarkable results in older adults, including those who are frail. Surprisingly, the frail group experienced greater percentage improvements in gait speed, timed up-and-go tests, and 6-minute walk distance compared to their baseline measurements. The American Heart Association has emphasized that doctors sometimes avoid recommending rehabilitation to older patients because they appear frail, but research shows these are precisely the patients who benefit most. A study by Martinez Velilla and colleagues found that exercise interventions of just 20 minutes twice daily significantly improved physical function in hospitalized adults aged 75 and older. The intervention did not require gym equipment or athletic ability. It required consistency and appropriate supervision. The long-term effects of post-diagnosis exercise can persist well beyond the initial rehabilitation period. Research found that 65% of patients who adhered to at least light physical activity after cardiac rehabilitation maintained their improved walking distance 1 year later. The degree of physical activity was directly correlated with maintained function. This shows that consistency matters more than intensity. You do not need to train like an athlete. You need to move regularly in ways your body can sustain. The patients who tried to do too much too fast often burned out or injured themselves. The patients who built gradually and maintained their habits saw lasting benefits. Without movement after a diagnosis, muscle loss accelerates, balance deteriorates, and the risk of falls and further complications increases dramatically. This creates a downward spiral that becomes progressively harder to reverse. Each week of inactivity makes the next week of recovery more difficult. The body adapts to whatever demands you place on it. If you demand nothing, it adapts to doing nothing. If you have been diagnosed with any serious condition, ask your doctor about rehabilitation programs or supervised exercise options. If none are available, start with 5 minutes of gentle walking daily and increase by 1 minute each week. The window for maximum benefit from post-diagnosis exercise is the first months after treatment. Start as soon as your doctor clears you. Number 3. Type 2 diabetes can go into remission. Type 2 diabetes has traditionally been treated as a lifelong progressive disease. Patients are told they will need to manage it forever, that it will likely worsen over time, and that the best they can hope for is slowing the progression. New research fundamentally challenges this narrative. For many patients, particularly those willing to make intensive lifestyle changes, diabetes can go into complete remission. This is not a fringe claim. It is now recognized in official medical coding systems and supported by major medical organizations. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine published clinical guidelines in 2025, establishing that intensive lifestyle interventions, particularly whole food plant-predominant diets combined with exercise, can achieve diabetes remission in many adults. A case study published in Endocrinology, Diabetes and Metabolism Case Reports in January 2025 documented a 66-year-old man with a 30-year history of type 2 diabetes who achieved complete remission. His approach combined a plant-based diet, regular exercise, and psychological support for stress management. His HbA1c dropped from 7.7 to 5.3%, and he remained in remission at 33 months follow-up. This was not a newly diagnosed patient with mild disease. This was someone who had lived with diabetes for 3 decades. The 2025 ICD-10 medical coding update now includes a specific code, E11.A, for type 2 diabetes in remission. This official recognition means that healthcare systems worldwide now acknowledge that remission is an achievable outcome, not just a theoretical possibility. The direct study found that a structured dietary intervention achieved diabetes remission in 36% of participants, with weight loss of more than 15 kilograms being highly predictive of success. However, even patients who did not achieve complete remission often saw significant improvements in blood sugar control and were able to reduce their need for multiple interventions. Partial improvement still matters enormously for long-term health. Uncontrolled diabetes accelerates complications affecting eyes, kidneys, nerves, and heart. Each year of poor control increases cumulative damage that becomes progressively harder to reverse. The sooner you take action, the more function you can preserve. If you have type 2 diabetes, ask your doctor whether remission is a realistic goal for your situation and what dietary changes would give you the best chance. Request a referral to a registered dietitian who specializes in diabetes management. Research shows that people with shorter diabetes duration have higher remission rates, but even those with longer histories can achieve significant improvements. The sooner you start making changes, the better your odds of meaningful results. Number 4, heart disease can actually reverse. What if the plaques blocking your arteries could actually shrink instead of grow? For decades, the conventional wisdom held that arterial plaque only moved in one direction. It accumulated over time, and the best patients could hope for was slowing the progression through lifestyle changes or managing it through procedures and ongoing treatment. Then, rigorous research demonstrated something remarkable. Under the right conditions, the body can actually reverse arterial blockage without surgical intervention. Dr. Dean Ornish's landmark research, published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, demonstrated that intensive lifestyle changes could reverse coronary artery disease. The intervention included a 10% fat whole food vegetarian diet, aerobic exercise, stress management training, smoking cessation, and group psychosocial support. In the experimental group, average arterial blockage decreased by 3.1 percentage points after 5 years, representing a 7.9% relative improvement. Meanwhile, the control group, who made only moderate lifestyle changes, saw their blockages worsen by 11.8 percentage points. The difference between the two groups was stark. One moved toward health, while the other moved toward crisis. Participants who made more intensive lifestyle changes showed greater reversal, while those who made only moderate changes saw their disease continue to progress. This demonstrates that partial measures produce partial results. The body responds proportionally to the changes you make. Small adjustments might slow decline, but they rarely reverse it. Meaningful reversal requires meaningful commitment. This does not mean that changes need to be complicated or require expensive programs. It means they need to be consistent and comprehensive. The National Institute on Aging confirms that physical activity, diet, and other lifestyle factors directly influence how quickly the heart and arteries age, and that interventions can slow or reverse these effects in many individuals. Heart disease typically progresses without intervention. What starts as mild blockage becomes moderate, then severe, eventually leading to heart attacks, bypass surgery, or worse outcomes. The progression is not inevitable, but it is the default trajectory for people who do nothing differently after their diagnosis. Talk to your cardiologist about cardiac rehabilitation programs and ask specifically about lifestyle-based approaches to managing your condition. Even if you cannot follow an intensive program perfectly, every improvement in diet and exercise contributes to better outcomes. Arterial plaque continues building every day you delay taking action. The changes you make this month affect what your arteries look like next year and the year after that. Number 5, lifestyle changes can improve cognitive function. For the first time in medical history, a randomized controlled trial has shown that intensive lifestyle changes can improve cognition in people with mild cognitive impairment or early Alzheimer's disease. This is not observational data suggesting correlation. This is a controlled experiment, demonstrating that intervention produces measurable improvement. The implications are profound for the millions of older adults worried about memory loss and cognitive decline. A June 2024 study published in Alzheimer's Research and Therapy reported results from the first randomized controlled clinical trial examining whether intensive lifestyle changes could affect Alzheimer's progression. 51 patients with an average age of 73.5 participated in the study. After 20 weeks, the group receiving intensive lifestyle intervention showed statistically significant improvements on the Clinical Global Impression of Change scale, while the control group showed no change or continued to decline. The intervention included dietary changes emphasizing plant-based whole foods, regular physical exercise, stress management techniques, and structured social support. All of these components worked together to produce results that neither could achieve alone. The study found a dose-response relationship between adherence and outcomes. Patients who followed the lifestyle protocol most closely showed the greatest cognitive improvements. This suggests that intensity and consistency matter significantly. Casual efforts produce minimal results. Committed efforts produce measurable change. Researchers noted that if lifestyle changes can improve cognition in those already experiencing decline, they may be even more effective at prevention. People who adopt these habits before symptoms appear may be able to delay or prevent cognitive problems entirely. The brain responds to lifestyle factors throughout life, not just in youth. Cognitive decline typically accelerates without intervention. Early-stage memory problems can progress to moderate and then severe dementia, affecting independence and quality of life in devastating ways. The earlier intervention begins, the more cognitive function can be preserved. If you or someone you love has been diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, ask the doctor about lifestyle interventions as part of the treatment plan. This is not instead of medical care, but alongside it. The brain remains more adaptable than scientists previously believed, but earlier intervention produces better results. Do not wait for symptoms to worsen before taking action. The time to start is now. Number 6. Social connection multiplies every other factor. Why were people who showed emotional wellness at baseline nearly 5 times more likely to recover than those who did not? This finding from the University of Toronto study points to something profound about human health. We are not isolated biological machines. We are social beings whose connections to others directly affect our physical outcomes. The research increasingly shows that loneliness and isolation are not just unpleasant feelings. They are genuine health hazards with measurable physiological effects. The University of Toronto study found that psychological and emotional wellness at baseline was the strongest predictor of regaining optimal well-being. Stronger than age. Stronger than specific diagnoses, stronger than income or education level. Being married was associated with 46% better odds of recovery compared to never married peers. Research from the Framingham Heart Study has demonstrated that social connections affect health as significantly as smoking status. A study published in The Gerontologist found that lifestyle interventions reduce depressive symptoms in older adults, primarily through increased social connections and meaningful activity. This suggests that the social component of health programs may be as important as the physical components. The Moai system in Okinawa provides a compelling example of institutionalized social support. These are groups of 5 friends who commit to supporting each other for life, meeting regularly to share meals, conversation, and assistance. Longevity researchers cite this tradition as a key factor in the region's exceptional health outcomes among older adults. The members of these groups do not just enjoy companionship, they experience better physical health because of it. When one member faces a health challenge, the others provide practical support, emotional encouragement, and accountability for healthy behaviors. No one faces difficulty alone. Social isolation increases dementia risk by 50% and has inflammatory effects equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes daily, according to research compiled by Harvard scientists. People who face diagnoses alone fare significantly worse than those with strong support systems. This is not weakness or dependency. This is human biology responding to the presence or absence of connection. After any diagnosis, identify at least 2 people you can talk to honestly about your health journey. If you do not have close connections currently, look for support groups related to your condition. Many hospitals and community centers offer them free of charge. The emotional response to a diagnosis often determines the physical response. Build your support system now, not after you already feel overwhelmed and isolated. A diagnosis is information, not a verdict. The research is remarkably clear on this point. Nearly 1 in 4 older adults who are struggling can regain optimal well-being within a few years. Not through miracles or expensive treatments or lucky genetics, but through consistent lifestyle changes. Movement, nutrition, stress management, and human connection. These factors work together, each amplifying the others. Your body retains remarkable capacity to heal and adapt, even after 60, even after 70, even after decades of living with a chronic condition. The question is not whether change is possible. The research has answered that question definitively. The question is whether you will give yourself the chance to find out what your body can still do. If you have made lifestyle changes after a diagnosis and seen results, share your experience in the comments below. Your story could inspire someone who desperately needs to hear it today. If you know someone who just received difficult health news, send them this video right now. And if you want more research-backed content about living well after 60, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. I will see you in the next one.